Okay, now let's continue on with West Africa. So first let's go ahead and go over the states again, since we might not remember what are the states of West Africa. Okay, let's start up at the top here. And it's fairly easy to do because you can just go around the coast here and realize also that there is a landlocked state here too that we shouldn't forget. And there's a couple of pieces of states now. It's easy to get confused here, but the pieces of states are really transition zone states. So the transition zone, let's not forget too, it does wave through here. So what we're going to have in this region, before I go over the states, is we're definitely going to have transition zone. And we know what that means. There's going to be a cultural influence of Islam in the north, and there's going to be a different influence in the south. The south, remember, during the slave trade, the interior became depleted of people, and the strengthening of civilization occurred in the cities on the coast. So it became a lot more coastal as far as trade. So the coastal cities are very trade-oriented, can be very modern, very progressive, whereas there can be Sharia law to the north, Islam, very traditional. And also you have the tribal aspects. You're still going to have all the different tribal influences all through. So that's it's good to keep those things in mind when we talk about West Africa. It is also, note the equator is right here, and so it is still just a little north of the equator, and can be very steamy and hot there. And it's fairly low, and so it doesn't have the very high plateau type of climate effect that you would get in East Africa. So let's go ahead and look at the states. Senegal, then there's Gambia, which looks like a bite out of Senegal. Guinea-Bissau, Guinea, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Cote d'Ivoire, or it's really Ivory Coast in English, so we'll say Ivory Coast, Ghana, Togo, Benin, and Nigeria. And of course, there is the transition zone. You have a little bit of Mali, a little bit of Niger, and transition zone up here. So, what is the key state? Nigeria. Nigeria has the most people in Sub-Saharan Africa, and it has the largest city in Sub-Saharan Africa, a very fast-growing city called Lagos. Lagos. Let's see if I can find Lagos. Oh, that's a very confusing looking map, isn't it? Right there, Lagos is right here, and you can see the Niger River. The delta comes out right here in Nigeria, and it's born in these higher areas of North Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea. That's where you have a little bit of higher area, and so that's where the river begins there in these higher areas. Then it goes, flows downward to the sea in that arc. Also, there's a little bit that comes from Cameroon in this higher areas of Cameroon. So those are the states of West Africa. So again, let's talk about Nigeria then, the key state. Nigeria is really split into factions. There's many tribes in Nigeria that make up Nigeria. And really there's three that can fall into three basic areas. You really have the Muslim effect to the north, which is very traditional, and where Sharia law can be in effect, and that clashes a lot with the coastal, very modern coastal influence, and these are trading peoples. And coastal, you also have tribal faction known as the area of Biafra off to the east. And so you really have these areas of the west, which is Lagos, the east, which is Biafra, and the north, which is Muslim and very traditional. So those different factions make it difficult to, again, politically very difficult for Nigeria to govern itself. But Nigeria is a very exciting place, obviously growing very quickly, population growing. There's a lot going on there, being the key state of influence. The other states, Benin is a state that has a lot of slaves from Brazil. Another place that has a lot of ex-slaves, these from the United States, is Liberia. Sierra Leone, there's a famous movie called Blood Diamonds. The diamonds in Sierra Leone were used to fund civil war. So this, very tragic. And yet, something, and people, just little tiny children forced to work in diamond mines under horrible, just horrific conditions. And yeah, really, really sad. And yet, diamonds, and a lot of outside influence coming in too. So Blood Diamonds encapsulates a lot of issues that have happened in Africa. Senegal is a fascinating place too. French speaking and Muslim. The Wolof people, it's a fascinating culture. So West Africa, again, transformed quite a bit by the slave trade. Also, really the cradle of African civilization, and in a way, the cradle of humankind too. Sub-Saharan Africa is the cradle of humankind, and this is where humans began and where culture began and where culture remains very fascinating. So let's go ahead and finish up with the transition zone. And the transition zone, again, these are the states. It's a wavery kind of a line that is generally pushing southward as Muslim and the influence of Islam pushes southward. Don't forget too that in general, the Muslim areas, Arabic speaking, nomadic, and in the south, it would be tribal religions and speaking the tribal languages, and in general, Christianity. The only two states that don't belong to other regions and haven't been covered already are Somalia and Djibouti. So I'll just mention these in the Horn of Africa here. Somalia is a failed state, and that means that its government, its statehood, is simply failed, as it has splintered into different parts. There is a portion of Somalia here that is recognized by the UN, and yet the rest of it has become full of pirates and corruption and not part of a state. So Somalia is still in this condition. Mogadishu is within that portion that has failed. Really the only part that's recognized is to the north up here. Okay, so that wraps up Sub-Saharan Africa. Thank you.